Pathmonk is the intelligent tool for website lead generation. With increasing online competition, over 98% of website visitors don't convert. The ability to successfully show your value proposition and support visitors in their buying journey separates you from the competition online. Pathmonk qualifies and converts leads on your website by figuring out where they are in the buying journey and influencing them in key decision moments with relevant micro experiences like case studies, intro videos, and much more. Stay relevant to your visitors and increase conversions by 50%. Add Pathmonk to your website in seconds. Let the AI do all the work and get access to 50% more qualified leads while you keep doing marketing and sales as usual. Check us on pathmonk.com. Welcome to today's episode. Let's talk about today's guest. We have Kyle Lacy from Jellyfish, CMO with them. How are you doing today, Kyle?
I am doing brilliant. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on today's episode, and I'm sure our listeners are tuning in and wondering what Jellyfish is all about. So in your own words, Kyle, tell us a little bit more.
So we call ourselves an engineering management platform, and it enables engineers and engineering leaders to align their work with business objectives. So how does an R&D team show that the products they are building deliver business impact?
Okay, perfect. All right. And so that way our listeners who are tuned in could get a good understanding of Jellyfish. What would you say is the key problems that you guys like to solve there in Jellyfish?
I mean, I'll simplify it pretty drastically, which is coming from a CMO's position who sits in board meetings. A lot of times, engineering teams are a black box. You know, it's easy for marketing to get up and give data. It's easy for the sales leader to give up and give data on quota attainment, as an example. It's much harder for an R&D leader to stand up in a board meeting or a leadership team meeting and give visibility into what the team is doing and how that affects the business. So you can think about R&D being a black box. Jellyfish opens up that black box to give visibility into the engineering org, everything they do, how they operate.
Okay, great to hear that. And I mean, I don't want to assume, but then is there a verticals? Is there an ideal ICP for you guys there at Jellyfish?
I mean, ideal persona, engineering manager, engineering leader, vice president of engineering, CTO, DevOps. Like there's a lot of different persona types. And then we also have a product that automates software capitalization for finance teams in terms of just the capitalization of what the team does. So from a vertical perspective, it's any company that has a large engineering team, honestly. So that could be anyone from a consumer brand company to a software company.
Okay, perfect. All right. And I mean, so how would then some of these engineers, some of these finance teams, how would they usually find out about Jellyfish? Is there a top client acquisition channel for you guys?
I mean, we're pretty heavy on both inbound and outbound. And we also do quite a bit of sponsorships of communities like the Engineering Leadership Council, ELC. And I'd say the top way that we get in front of people is events, like in-person dinners, conferences. And then there's the community element online, which is more of the social side.
Okay. All right. Great. And so that way our listeners who are tuned in could go ahead and visit you guys. You could always check them out at jellyfish.co. What role does the website play then for client acquisition, Kyle?
I mean, the website's the second most important product that we have as a company. So, you know, if that says anything, for me as a marketing leader, it is the marketing team's most important product, and how you activate it, how you test it, the messaging, the positioning, the design, the performance. We keep an eye on it, just like our engineering teams keep an eye on our product, on our flagship product. It's very
Exactly. Yep, I would agree with that. And on that note, then, is there any tools or tips or methods that you would recommend to our listeners as far as some website lead generation?
I mean, invest in search. We use a company called Demandwell to do that. And it's how do you scale SEO? So content production. That's I won't put these in any order, but these are just things that come to mind, right? Second one is Hotjar for heat mapping, to understand where people are going, to make sure that you're doing quality A/B tests. We use a product called Intellimize that helps with the personalization of content depending on the IP address. So, if you're an enterprise customer to come into our website, the content's going to change based off of if you're a prospect, as an example. And we could use that to test. For me, it's what content's being produced and how does it drive thought leadership and revenue? Do you understand what's actually happening on the site in terms of heat mapping? And then how do you personalize content in an appropriate way for the people that are visiting? That's kind of the 3 buckets. And then there's performance, of course, but that's a little bit separate.
Okay, great. Some great advice there for our listeners. And well, let's switch gears a little bit, Kyle, and let's talk about you as a leader. You being the CMO of there for Jellyfish, what are some key tasks you like to focus on your day-to-day work?
I mean, my main concern is serving my team, and I have 2 teams. I have a first team, which is the executive team, and I have a second team, which is the marketing team. And the question that I ask myself daily is, what are you doing today to help serve both those teams in a meaningful way? You're either moving a project forward that needs to be completed for a business objective, or you're removing barriers and roadblocks for your team to get their job done. And so I don't like to say manage or lead. It's more serve, because that's what you're doing. You're serving a team of individuals to make sure they're doing their best work. So for me, it's how do I make sure I'm doing those 2 things for those 2 teams?
That's great to hear. Great leadership there. And then on that base, then in your in-between times, is there a preferred channel to stay up with all the marketing strategies trends out there?
Oh, not like, okay. So there's 2 Substacks that I read, which is Lenny's podcast or Lenny's newsletter. I don't really listen to podcasts, but it's basically the same thing. And that's more, state of the art, what's happening in the market. And then the second one is more leadership oriented, which is from Dr. Julie Gerner. And I cannot remember the name of the thing as you ask me it, and I'm going to search and tell you in like 3 seconds. It's called Ultra Successful by Dr. Gerner. Those are the 2 Substacks I pay for, and I read whenever they publish something. Outside of that, I'm a part of a community called Pavilion, which has thousands and thousands and thousands of practitioners. And that's a source of knowledge for me and has been since I've been a member since 2017. And then the third way is LinkedIn. I spend a lot of time networking, building community on that site, and it does surface things for me, for sure.
Definitely. All right. Awesome to hear that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And then, well, let's jump into our next section here, Kyle, which is our rapid fire question rounds. Are you ready for them?
Love rapid fire. Let's do it.
All right. First off is, what is the last book that you read?
30 Years War, about the 30-year war in Europe. I read that question. I was like, oh, this is going to be lame, because I don't really read business and marketing books. It's more history. So before that was The 3-Body Problem, which I highly recommend on Netflix, the show right now. So I usually read sci-fi or history.
Well, that's important, right? Kind of like distract your mind, right? All day you're at work, and I like asking this question because it's, some people will answer business, some people will answer fiction, nonfiction, and it's interesting, right? If you go with the fiction, it's it's kind of like in your own world, you're relaxing. So,
well, hey, look, if you're doing business, and I'm doing business and marketing 12 hours a day, like the time that I spend with my family and the time I spend reading is not going to be spent reading about marketing.
Definitely would agree with you. I mean, as long as you're there at work and you're reading that, then that's all right? But other than that, there's a time and place for that. Awesome. The next up is, what is one single thing that Jellyfish is focused on at the moment the most?
I mean, it's our core business statement. It's always our mission statement. It's always been, it's how do you make engineering leaders business leaders? So you can wax poetic about any feature set or product offering. That's how do we make engineering leaders business leaders, because every company is a software company now.
I would totally agree with that. Yep. The next is, Kyle, is, if there's one repetitive task that you could automate, what would that be? If any.
I automate, it would be my inbox and calendar. Like, I know I use Calendly. I love Calendly. Calendly is a great product. If I could automate the responding to things and the managing of tasks in a meaningful way, that would be very helpful.
I think for everybody, right?
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
for sure. We're going to get there, believe me, but I haven't seen it yet.
I mean, and I think we'll get there. It's just that personalization, right? Learning from the user. I guess it's at one moment. I'm sure we'll get there. It's just
There's a company called Day.ai that I think is moving pretty quickly towards it. I need to dig back into where they're at on their products, but that was always an interesting one to me.
All right, great there. Then next is, if there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be that one thing that you want to have fixed for your role as a marketer today?
If there were no boundaries, I think it still has to do with AI and data collection. I think that being able to manage and organize data from all the multiple sources in a meaningful way, displayed with intelligence that gives you choices on what to do in the future, strategic choices as a marketer, instead of looking at a bunch of Salesforce dashboards. And I want to be very clear, this is not a call for help for everybody with a dashboard company to email me and hit me up on LinkedIn, because I still haven't found the right solution for this. But, you know, as you ingest all the data sets that marketers look at and sales, a go-to-market dashboard that gives you next steps and flags things that might be happening in the pipeline with quota attainment, messaging and positioning. Think about a chief of staff for a CMO would be amazing. And so, like, a combination of product marketing, chief of staff, and rev ops.
Definitely. All right. Awesome. So great there. And like you mentioned, not to reach out to you, but no worries.
Okay, I'll just
a couple maybe, but not.
Yeah,
that would be great. And well, lastly, Kyle, love to ask this question because you have a lot of experience. But what is that one piece of advice that you would give yourself if you were to restart your journey as a marketer coming out of Anderson University?
Slow down. I think slow down is what I would like to say that it'd be more, hey, don't put too much of your self-worth in your career, but I don't think I would ever change that. You know, that will always be a part of who I am. But slowing down and being more strategic would definitely have benefited me in some parts of my career. Of course, you know, hindsight, but definitely slow down, take a breath, be more strategic. Don't just rush to get things done all the time.
Definitely important advice there. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Kyle. And I'm sure our listeners are taking that advice as well. And well, Kyle, we are coming to the end of the show today. But before we do end, I do want to give you the last word. If someone forgets everything about the interview today, what is that one thing they should remember about Jellyfish?
Oh, if you're having a hard time understanding how your engineering team functions, we can help with it. You know, and then the second thing would be just slow down, people. They'll be all right.
Well, there you guys heard it from Kyle. Check them out at jellyfish.co. Anticipate, build, and deliver with your engineering team. Kyle, thank you so much for being on with us today. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm looking forward to our next episode at Pathmonk Presents. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Thanks for having me.